Several times over the last few months I've had people talk to me about integrated management systems, and is it really that straightforward to do? In this vignette I hope to show you the approach I've had with several companies that have talked about safety management and started there, as in OHSAS 18001. That requires you to identify hazards, i.e. anything with the potential to cause harm, and to look at what control measures you already have in place to prevent that harm actually happening. And to do so in a way that you prioritize based on what risk level. So what's the real chance of it happening, and what's the impact if it does? To look for ways of improving it, and to do so in a continual improvement manner. That in a nutshell is 18001. So how do we look for the identification of hazards? Well, the most straightforward way I've got is to look at the work activities or the work processes. And as soon as I say that, I think about ISO 9001, which is the quality management standard, because that asks you to look at all the processes in your organization and to look at their interrelationships. And one of the most straightforward ways of doing that is to look at the steps in those processes and how they link to other processes. But if I take the steps, why can't I look for hazards in the steps? In other words, ISO 9001 could give me the structure on which to build the philosophy and methodology of 18001. So hazards such as access egress, climbing, interconfined spaces, biological, effluent, viruses, chemical, hazardous, toxic, electrical, shocks, emergency, first aid, emergency fire doors, energy, laser, radiation, environmental workplace, heat, light, ventilation. But it could also include workplace violence. It could include bullying. But let's go back to chemical. That would include chemical waste, surely. And isn't that an environmental protection issue? And there's other things like noise, nuisance, that's environmental protection. So I could actually have a hazard classification of environmental protection. And that would then bring me into the 14001 environmental management system loop. And if I do the structure right, this will show me the aspects and impacts that would cover 14001. So 9001 gives me a good framework. 18001 gives me a methodology which builds on the skeleton and puts meat to the bones. 14000 adds a bit more meat. And so from 9, 18, 14 we build an integrated management system. And it's that straightforward to do. But is that all? No, let's go back to 9001. It has mandatory standards such as control of documents, control of records, internal audits. But so do these apply to 14 and 18001. Control of non-conforming products or service. Well, 14001 and 18001 talk about non-conformance, i.e. anything with a failure to perform to a standard, be it international, national, or even the company standard. So control of non-conformance, mandatory heading, corrective and preventive action in all three standards, preventing it happening in the first place, correcting it so it doesn't happen again. Legal and other requirements is inferred in 9001 but clear in 14 and 18. Emergency planning is definitely in 14 and 18, and if we think of it from a business continuity point of view, it's inferred in 9001 principles. So using the mandatory side, I can save time and effort. Using the skeleton of 9001, building on the bones and the meat, etc., using 18 and 14. If I follow 9001, I've got 100% of a management system. By thinking 18001 and the methodology outlined, that is probably another 25% effort. 14001 would be another 10% effort. That would be an IMS. But could I add corporate social responsibility, information security, already mentioned business continuity, and any other standards such as 31000 and the risk guidance? Yes, I could, and lead towards a totally integrated business management system. I hope that clarifies the approach, that it can be that straightforward.